So if you look at the data from May of 2026, the median salary for a corporate chief executive officer was right around $815,000.
Right. A pretty massive number.
Yeah, massive. But then you look at the chief operating officer, and this is the person who's actually running the company's daily operations, right? Managing the people, making sure the lights literally stay on.
The one doing the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And they made almost half of that CEO's salary, roughly $467,000.
It's quite a drop-off.
It's a staggering gap, honestly. I mean, why is the person doing all the internal day-to-day work paid half as much as the person who just, stares out the window at the horizon?
Well, I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive when you frame it like that. Because as humans, we're just wired to equate visible daily labor with actual value.
Right. If you're sweating, you're working.
Exactly. But at the very top of the corporate food chain, the whole definition of labor fundamentally shifts. You aren't really being paid for your output anymore. You are being paid to absorb existential risk.
And that exact idea is what we are getting into today for you, the learner. We are unlocking the frosted glass doors of the C-suite.
Yes, the mysterious top floor.
It's a term that gets thrown around on financial news networks constantly, like it's some mythological realm in the business world.
It really is treated that way.
So our mission for today's deep dive is all about demystifying those top-tier executives. We're using excerpts from a great source called Architects of the Enterprise, a guide to the C-suite.
A really comprehensive guide, yeah.
And we're going to figure out how these specific roles function, how they work as a team, and maybe most importantly, what it actually takes to earn a seat at that table.
Which is a critical dynamic to understand because, look, this group isn't just a collection of senior managers. They're literally the architects of a company's entire reality.
Right.
And what's most fascinating to me is that getting into that room requires a complete unlearning of everything that made you successful in the first place.
Okay, let's pull that apart because that is a wild concept.
It is.
Just to keep it jargon-free, our source kind of takes an explain it like I'm five approach.
Yeah.
Basically, the C-suite, where the C stands for chief, is simply a group of leaders responsible for specific areas.
Right. Finance, operations, technology, all of that.
Yeah. And they work as a team to set direction and reach goals. But to get a title that starts with chief, you spend years, maybe decades, climbing the corporate ladder.
Oh, absolutely.
But the mechanism of that climb totally changes at the final rung. Like when you are moving up through the middle ranks, you rely on functional know-how.
You're a doer.
Exactly. You get promoted because your technical skills are top-notch.
Yeah.
But our source explicitly notes that to cross the threshold into the C-suite, to make those sound upper management decisions, you have to abandon that technical safety blanket.
Yes, you have to cultivate what they call a visionary perspective.
I was actually thinking about this like a massive symphony orchestra.
Oh, I like that. Go on. Like, when you are on the lower or middle rungs of the ladder, you are being paid to be the absolute best violinist possible. Your technical, granular skill is literally everything.
Right, you play the notes perfectly.
Right, but entering the C-suite is like being asked to step up to the podium and become the conductor. If you get up there and just keep playing the violin really, really well,
the whole orchestra falls apart.
Exactly. You literally have to put down your instrument so you can see the entire stage.
That's a great visual. And that transition from the violin to the baton, that is the graveyard for a lot of rising corporate stars.
Wait, really? The graveyard?
Oh, yeah. The psychological difficulty of that shift is immense. Because think about it. Your functional expertise, whether that's, coding or accounting or sales, that's your armor.
It's what makes you feel competent.
Exactly. When you reach the top level, you are suddenly stripped of that armor. You're no longer making decisions based on your specific technical expertise. You are being asked to align entire disparate divisions of a company toward a single strategic horizon. So what happens when a newly promoted executive just can't put down the violin?
Well, you see this all the time. Say a brilliant vice president of sales becomes a CEO. Under stress, human nature dictates that we retreat to our comfort zones.
Oh, so they just go back to selling?
Sort of, yeah. The new CEO starts micromanaging the sales team because that's what they know. Meanwhile, they're completely ignoring a looming supply chain crisis. or like a massive shift in technology.
Wow.
Yeah, the visionary perspective isn't just about looking forward, it's about cognitive discipline. You really have to suppress the urge to be a doer.
Because you cannot align business strategy across entirely different departments if your head is still buried in the technical weeds of just one of them.
Precisely.
So now that we understand this total mindset shift, let's look at the specific people holding those batons. We're moving from the abstract concept of leadership to the actual core trio of the C-suite.
The CEO, the COO, and the CFO.
Let's start with the big one, the Chief Executive Officer.
The highest ranking executive. Definitively the #1 person in charge.
Right.
But what is interesting is the lack of a standardized origin story for CEOs. They come from incredibly varied career backgrounds. You have tech founders, former finance guys, marketing experts.
Right, there isn't just one major in college that makes you a CEO.
Exactly. The unifying characteristic isn't their background. It is their strong leadership and decision-making skills, their ability to act as the external face of the organization.
Their main job is planning for the future.
Yeah.
Guiding the overarching direction and seeking advice from the rest of the C-suite.
Yes, looking at the horizon.
Which brings us right to the second in command,
Yeah.
the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. Their job is, well, it's incredibly broad.
Very broad.
They take the CEO's grand plans and figure out how to actually implement them. They ensure all the different departments work together smoothly. They adjust the business strategy to improve daily operational efficiency.
And they often oversee human resources, too, ensuring a pleasant work environment.
Okay, but this is where I really have to push back. And it ties back to that massive salary gap I mentioned at the very beginning of the deep dive.
I knew we'd get back to that.
We have to. If the COO is the one implementing the plans, adjusting the daily operations, running human resources, and making sure everyone actually plays nice together. I mean, isn't the COO doing all the actual work?
It definitely looks that way from the ground floor. Absolutely.
Right. While the CEO just gets to be the face of the company, point at the horizon, and collect double the paycheck.
Yeah.
It feels like the CEO is completely detached from the reality of the company.
Well, it's not a detachment. It's a highly strategic division of labor. Think about it. If the CEO is constantly pulled into the gravitational sphere of internal disputes,
Arguing about HR policies.
right, or fixing operational bottlenecks or troubleshooting a delayed product launch, if they are doing all that, they are no longer looking at the horizon. They are looking down at their feet.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then the company crashes into a wall because nobody was looking ahead.
Precisely. The CEO must understand macroeconomic shifts, anticipate future industry disruptions, manage the board of directors, external stakeholders. That is a full-time, high-stakes cognitive job.
So the COO is the internal engine.
Exactly. The ship might be running perfectly under the COO, the engine's humming perfectly, but if the CEO isn't watching the radar, that perfectly running ship steers straight into a market iceberg. The CEO actually needs a COO who is entirely focused internally, so the CEO has the freedom to navigate.
Okay, that clarifies the tension between the top two.
Yeah.
The CEO steers, the COO keeps the engine from blowing up, but a CEO can't just stare at the horizon and point the ship wherever they want, right?
Oh no, that's a recipe for disaster.
They'd bankrupt the company in a week with grand ideas. They need an anchor.
Which brings us to the third member of that core trio, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer.
The absolute top of the ladder for financial analysts and accountants.
Right, and their domain is vast. We are talking portfolio management, securing financing, investment research, rigorous financial analysis. But, their real value at the C-suite level isn't just basic bookkeeping. It is complex risk modeling.
Our source mentions they operate with a global mindset, which is a fascinating way to put it.
It is.
They work incredibly closely with the CEO, but it sounds like a naturally adversarial relationship. Like if the CEO says, let's sail over there by our biggest competitor and start a new venture, the CFO is the one who has to weigh the financial risks and benefits of that new venture.
It really should be somewhat adversarial, or at least inherently tense. The CFO is the ultimate financial reality check on the CEO's vision.
So they're the ones saying no to the big dreams.
Often, yes. Imagine the CEO wants to aggressively expand into European markets. The CFO isn't just looking at the bank account to see if they have the cash today. The CFO is building complex, multi-year risk models.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to show the CEO how this expansion might totally cannibalize their domestic R&D budget in 3 years, especially if, say, interest rates rise by 2%. They quantify the CEO's dreams into hard, unforgiving math.
So the core trio is a visionary, an operator, and a risk calculator.
That's a good summary.
But, keeping the company solvent and running smoothly isn't enough in the modern landscape. Just keeping the lights on isn't growth. A company has to adapt and innovate, especially in the digital age.
Which brings us to the modern specialists, the tech and growth engines of the C-suite.
Right. And this is an area where the lines get very blurry for people, especially the distinction between the CIO and the CTO, the information officer versus the technology officer.
Yes, the distinction there is a perfect example of how specialized the top floor has become.
Let's really break this down because it's a crucial difference for you, the listener, to memorize. The CIO, the information officer, usually comes up through the ranks as a business analyst or a programmer.
And their focus is almost entirely internal.
Right. They handle internal IT strategy, risk management, finance activities, and ensuring that the internal technology actually serves the business's daily activities.
Whereas the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, has a focus that is decidedly external. They are in charge of technological needs, R&D, cutting-edge innovation, and directing short and long-term capital investments into new technology.
Stuff the company will actually sell.
Exactly. And because their work is so tied to future revenue, the CTO is typically the one reporting directly to the CEO.
Here's an analogy to keep those two straight. The CIO, the information officer, is like the architect of a massive factory. Their job is keeping the lights on, making sure the servers are secure, and ensuring all the internal systems are humming so everyone can do their jobs.
Right, the internal architect.
But the CTO, the technology officer, is the inventor in the lab, building the shiny, brand new tech product the factory is eventually going to sell to the world.
It's a solid baseline for understanding their domains, but we also have to look at how they work together, or honestly, how they clash.
Oh, is there friction there too?
It is rarely a peaceful coexistence. In practice, it is often a massive turf war. Oh, yeah. The inventor CTO might develop a brilliant, resource-heavy new software product, but the architect CIO looks at that product and says, our current internal servers cannot support the infrastructure needed to launch this without a $50 million upgrade.
Oh man, so the CTO's innovation becomes the CIO's massive operational headache.
Exactly. The external ambition crashes into the internal reality.
That makes total sense. And sitting right next to those two tech leaders trying to figure out how to market all of this is the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer.
Yes.
They usually work your way up from sales and marketing. But a modern CMO isn't just like coming up with kitschy ad slogans.
Not at all. The digital age has completely transformed the CMO's mandate. They ensure all activities align with a cohesive brand strategy, sure. But crucially, they manage social innovation and product development across physical and electronic platforms.
Their ultimate goal is singular: grow the business. And beyond these core roles, you have a whole list of other highly specialized chiefs. Depending on the company, you could have a CCO for compliance, a CHRO for human resources, a CSO for security, a CAO for analytics, or a CDO for data.
But here is the critical thread that ties all these acronyms together. All these specialists must work in concert.
Right.
The entire purpose of this group is to ensure that operations align perfectly with the established plans. If the visionary CEO, the operational COO, the CFO, the CIO, and the CTO aren't moving in lockstep, the friction just tears the enterprise apart.
Which brings us to a really raw, practical question. With all these different fiefdoms, how does a company even structure this? And, more importantly, what is the cost and pressure associated with sitting in one of those seats?
Well, the structure itself depends heavily on context. The number of C-level jobs depends on company size, its mission, and its specific industry.
Right. Like a small company might just use a COO for human resources and operations. But a massive conglomerate is going to need both a dedicated CHRO and a COO.
Exactly. And right below the C-suite tier, you have managing directors, senior vice presidents, and division heads.
But regardless of how many seats are at the table, the defining characteristic of the C-suite is the existential pressure. These are high-stress, high-stakes positions.
The stakes are incredibly high, especially in public companies.
Because of the stock market.
Yes. The overarching rule is that if activities don't lean toward increased profits for shareholders, the executives are, to use the source's polite corporate phrasing, routinely corrected.
Routinely corrected.
Yeah.
That is such a sterile way of describing getting fired.
It really is. It means brutal firings, sweeping strategy changes. If the stock price stagnates, the board of directors doesn't just ask nicely for a change in direction, they remove the architects.
Which brings us full circle to that May 2026 Salary.com data. The compensation is inherently tied to that constant threat of correction.
Absolutely.
Just to review the numbers, the median salary for a CEO was $815,082. The CEO was at $466,650. The CFO at $437,912.
And the tech roles.
The blended Chief Information Technology Officer sat at $349,205. The CTO at $309,539. And the CMO at $245,857.
Those are substantial packages, obviously, but they reflect the hazard pay of the roles.
Hazard pay, let's zero in on that. Going back to that massive drop-off between the CEO and the COO, why is the face of the company valued at nearly double the engine?
It comes down to ultimate accountability. We established that the COO is managing the immense daily operations, but the CEO bears the ultimate public responsibility for those shareholder profits.
Right.
When things go wrong and those corrections happen, the CEO is the one squarely in the crosshairs. The board doesn't fire the COO when the stock tanks due to a bad market strategy. They fire the CEO.
That massive premium is the price of carrying the existential risk.
It is the premium for wearing the ultimate target on your back.
Well, knowing that there's a target on your back, but also an $800,000 paycheck, that definitely makes the C-suite sound appealing. So how does a listener actually get there?
That's the big question.
What is the blueprint? How do you climb from the ground floor to the C-suite?
Well, the most sobering realization is that there is no standard roadmap.
There isn't.
No. Most people start as junior staff down in the bullpen. But from there, the paths diverge wildly. Some require a proactive, highly thoughtful formulation of a career path.
Like planning every lateral move perfectly.
Yes. But then there are others who get by on being aggressive and, rubbing elbows with the right people.
The classic dichotomy, the methodical planner versus the aggressive networker.
Exactly.
I want you, the listener, to think about your own industry right now. Who actually gets promoted faster? Is it the quiet worker with the perfect spreadsheet who never speaks up?
Yeah.
Or is it the person who is aggressively rubbing elbows with the executives at the company happy hour?
It's easy to be cynical about the networker winning out, but if we look at the mechanics of the C-suite, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Because networking isn't just schmoozing, it gets you noticed. When a board is hiring, they are mitigating risk. They need to know you can handle high-stakes social dynamics.
Oh, that makes sense. But the crucial caveat is that networking alone isn't enough.
Right. Regardless of the path, our source makes it clear. Hard work, a skilled record of accomplishment, and zero complacency are mandatory.
Being great at happy hour might get you an interview, but the skilled record of accomplishment is what keeps you in the room when the stakes are high.
Exactly. And this is why proper credentials, like an MBA from a top business school, are still a big plus. It proves you have that visionary cross-departmental perspective.
Let's take a breath and recap this journey we've been on. We started down in the junior bullpen, learned to drop our technical safety nets to develop a visionary perspective.
Put down the violin.
Exactly. We navigated the specialized roles of the core trio CEO, COO, CFO, and the tech engines, and we saw the high-stress, highly paid reality at the very top.
It is a complex ecosystem, but there is a subtle detail in our text that raises a fascinating final thought.
What's that?
The source notes that despite their massive salaries and immense influence, C-suite members are still just employees of the firm.
Right.
And in public companies, they are routinely corrected if they don't increase shareholder profits. Which leaves us with this question. With all their visionary leadership and operational power, who really holds the power in a corporation,
Wow.
are these highly paid chiefs truly the masters of the enterprise? Or are they just the ultimate high-stress middle managers serving the faceless shareholders?
Oh, man. That entirely shatters the mythology. You look up at those frosted glass doors on the top floor, and you realize that even the most powerful people in the building are still constantly looking over their shoulders. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking at the corporate world through this new lens, and we will catch you next time.